Clara Moretti sat quietly in the garden, her wheelchair parked beneath the tall sycamore tree. The air smelled of fresh grass and distant flowers, but Clara barely noticed. Her hands rested on her lap, thin fingers tracing the edges of her woolen shawl. To the outside world, she looked like a woman enjoying nature, but inside, she felt like a prisoner. A prisoner of her own broken body. It had been 3 years since that cursed day. One wrong turn on a rainy highway had flipped her car, crushed her legs, and crushed her life along with it. She was tired of that question. She was tired of sympathy. She was tired of being alive, but not really living. From that moment, Clara's life turned into a circle of sterile hospital rooms, quiet physiotherapy sessions, and meaningless business calls. Used to be a powerful woman, running one of the largest fashion brands in the city. Now, she was nothing but a shadow of herself, trapped in silence, pushing away everyone who tried to help. Slowly, she turned her head and saw a boy standing a few feet away. Before we continue, please do subscribe to my channel. He couldn't have been older than 7 or 8. His clothes were plain, his hair a bit messy, but his brown eyes, those eyes looked so sure of themselves. And so every evening she rolled herself into the public garden, the only place where she could sit without being asked, "How are you feeling today?" This evening seemed no different. Birds sang overhead, the sky shifted from gold to purple, and Clara let herself sink deeper into loneliness, until, "Excuse me." Soft voice interrupted her thoughts. Clara blinked, annoyed at the sudden voice. "I can make you walk again," the boy said, his voice calm, steady. Clara's brows lifted, and then, despite herself, she laughed. A short, bitter laugh, the first sound she had made all day. "Walk again?" Clara repeated, almost amused. "Kid, doctors from the best clinics in Europe and America couldn't help me and you. You think you can?" The boy nodded confidently, not flinching even once. "Yes," he said softly, "I can." Clara shook her head, letting out another laugh, longer this time. Her shoulders even moved a little from the force of it. She hadn't laughed in months, but this was ridiculous. "Shouldn't you be home doing homework?" she asked, trying to wave him off. "Go tell your mother not to let you wander around talking nonsense to strangers." But the boy didn't move. He stayed right there, his little hands tucked in his pockets, eyes fixed on hers. "My name is Leo," he said. "And I don't have a mother." Clara's laughter died, her smile disappearing as quickly as it had come. "Well, I'm sorry to hear that," she said, her voice colder now. "But that doesn't change anything. I can't walk, and I don't need fake promises from strange kids." Leo tilted his head slightly. "I'm not making fake promises. I just said I can help you." Clara rolled her eyes, reaching for her wheels, trying to leave. She wasn't in the mood for this. But then, Leo's next words froze her hands midair. "You used to have a housekeeper, Rosa," he said quietly. "Rosa worked for you for many years." Clara's hands stopped, her throat went dry, her grip loosened. "How do you know that name?" Clara whispered, staring hard at the boy. Leo stepped closer, his voice still soft, but unshakable. "Rosa was my grandmother." For a second, Clara forgot to breathe. Memories, sharp and painful, stabbed at her chest. Rosa. Loyal Rosa, who worked in her house for 15 years, who she threw out after accusing her of theft. Clara's mouth opened, then closed. Her fingers trembled. Leo kept talking. "You fired her after your pearl necklace went missing. You never let her explain. And when you found it later, hidden behind your dresser, you didn't call her back." Clara's heart pounded against her ribs. Her mouth tasted bitter. How do you know all this?" she asked, her voice shaking. Leo shrugged. "Grandma used to tell me stories, even after you threw her out. Oh. She always said she forgave you. But you never forgave yourself." Clara looked away, eyes burning, throat closing up. She remembered the look on Rosa's face when she was thrown out. The shock, the hurt. And Clara had ignored it. She had been too proud to admit her mistake, too stubborn to apologize. Leo's voice softened even more. "If you really want to walk again, maybe you need to start with forgiveness." The wind rustled the leaves above them. Somewhere a dog barked in the distance. Clara swallowed hard, gripping the armrests of her wheelchair. She had come to this garden to be alone. But tonight, a little boy had cracked something inside her, something she thought was long dead. Her legs still felt lifeless, but her heart. It had just taken a shaky little step. Clara couldn't sleep that night. She lay in her grand empty bedroom, staring at the crystal chandelier above. The bed was too soft, the room too silent, and her thoughts too loud. Rosa, that name hadn't crossed her mind in years. Now it was all she could think about. The boylik knew things about her life no stranger should know. The way he spoke, so calm, so sure. It unsettled her in a way no doctor, no therapist, no relative ever had. The next evening, Clara found herself rolling into the same garden, her heart heavier than usual. She told herself she was just there for fresh air. What she kept repeating until she spotted him. Leo, in the same simple clothes, sitting on the same bench where she usually parked her wheelchair. His face lit up when he saw her, like they were old friends. Clara didn't understand why her chest squeezed at that innocent smile. "You came back," Leo said, his tone cheerful. Clara gave him a sharp look, but couldn't hold it long. "I didn't come back for you," she muttered, adjusting her shawl. "This is a public park. I can sit wherever I want." Leo shrugged, clearly unfazed. "That's fine. I knew you'd come anyway." Clara pressed her lips into a thin line. "You're a very strange little boy," Leo grinned, leaning forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "I told you. Can make you walk again." Clara sighed, exasperated. "Let's clear this up right now. You can't fix me. I've seen specialists in Zurich, surgeons in New York, and therapists in Italy. They all said the same thing: me spine is damaged beyond repair. Do you understand?" Leo nodded seriously. "I understand what they said. But no one talks about what your heart looks like." Inside, Clara's breath hitched slightly. She masked it with irritation. "Stop playing word games, Leo. Why are you really here?" Leo's smile faded just a little. He looked at her, not like a child, but like someone who understood more than he should. "Because I made a promise to Grandma Rosa before she got sick." Clara's throat tightened. "Sick? What do you mean?" Leo's legs swung lightly beneath the bench. "She's been sick for a while. She needs surgery, but we can't afford it." Clara blinked, guilt stabbing deeper. Rosa, poor, quiet Rosa, needing help while she lived in luxury? Why didn't anyone tell me? Clara asked, but the question sounded weak even to herself. She knew why. She had closed that chapter herself, slammed it shut. Leo's voice was steady. "Because you stopped listening after you fired her. You locked yourself in your big house and bigger pride." Clara winced. She wanted to deny it. "But she see, OULDN, single quotes." Leo continued, "Grandma always told me Clara was good once. She always prayed you'd be happy. Again, even after you ruined her life." Clara inhaled sharply, gripping the wheels of her chair. "I didn't. But the words stuck in her throat. Leo didn't wait for excuses. He stood up, walked closer, and crouched in front of her, placing a tiny hand on hers. His touch was warm, gentle, and strangely comforting. "Do you want to feel alive again, Clara?" Leo asked, looking up into her eyes. "But really live?" Clara's eyes burned. She blinked hard, swallowing down emotions she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. "I don't know," she whispered honestly. Leo squeezed her hand softly. "Then start small. Start with remembering Grandma's kindness. It's not just your anger. Come here again tomorrow. I'll tell you things about her you never noticed." Clara stared at him, confused and uncertain. But her hands didn't pull away. Her chest felt heavy, but her heart, it fluttered just a little. Maybe, just maybe, this boy wasn't lying. Maybe, through the strangest of ways, she had been given a second chance. She didn't say yes. But she didn't say no either. As Clara wheeled herself back home that evening, the air felt different. Her body was still broken, but her spirit felt less numb, and for the first time in 3 years, she didn't dread coming back to the garden tomorrow. The next afternoon, Clara dressed with more care than usual. She combed her hair neatly, picked a soft blue shawl instead of the usual gray, and dabbed a light perfume on her wrists. She wasn't sure why, but her heart felt restless. When she rolled into the garden, Leo was already waiting, sitting cross-legged. On the grass, he waved brightly when he saw her, like they were old friends meeting again after a long time. "You came?" Leo said, smiling wide. Clara gave a reluctant smile back. "I had nothing better to do," she replied stiffly, trying to ignore the flicker of warmth in her chest. Leo didn't tease her. He patted the grass next to her wheelchair and said, "Today, I want to tell you about the cookies." Clara blinked, confused. "Cookies?" Leo nodded. "Yes. My grandma always said your house smelled nicest on Thursdays, because you used to bake cookies with her after lunch." Clara's hand instinctively touched her lips. Memories came rushing back afternoons in the kitchen, laughing while rolling dough, tasting chocolate chips, sneaking cookies before they cooled down. She had forgotten. She had forgotten the simple joys, erased them from her heart after the accident. "Grandma said, you always looked happiest on those days," Leo continued. "Even when work was hard or people were mean, baking made you smile." Clara lowered her head. "I stopped baking after Rosa left. I told myself it was childish, unimportant." Leo tilted his head. "Or maybe it reminded you too much of her." Clara swallowed, guilt swirling inside. She had buried not just Rosa's memory, but pieces of herself too. Leo's voice softened. "You were kind once, Clara, before the world made you angry, before you became lonely." Clara's lips trembled. She had spent so long blaming everyone else, her accident, her employees, her circumstance, but deep inside, she knew. She had let bitterness win. "I wasn't always like this," she whispered, almost to herself. Leo smiled gently. "I know. Grandma always said Clara had a good heart, just too many scars." Clara closed her eyes, and for a moment, she wasn't a bitter woman in a wheelchair. She was the young Clara, laughing in the kitchen, wiping flour off her cheeks while Rosa told silly jokes. Leo reached into his small backpack and pulled out a notebook. I wrote down Grandma's favorite recipes, in case you forgot. Clara's hands trembled as she took the notebook. Her fingers brushed the rough paper. It felt like a bridge to a life she thought was lost. "Why are you doing this for me, Leo?" she asked, her voice thick with emotion. "After what I did to Rosa, why?" Leo's answer was simple. "'Cause Grandma never hated you. She only felt sorry for you. For the loneliness you trapped yourself in." Clara's eyes burned, but she didn't wipe the tears away. She let them fall, freely, openly. Maybe for the first time in years, Leo stood up and stretched. "Come back tomorrow. I'll tell you more about her." Clara nodded slowly, clutching the little notebook like a treasure. As she rolled away that day, the world seemed softer. The sky seemed bluer, the flowers brighter, and the air warmer. Her legs didn't move, but her heart had taken a few more steps, and somewhere deep inside, she felt a small spark returning, gone. She thought it died forever. Clara was early to the garden the next day. She found herself looking at the watch more than usual, feeling restless in her chest, something stirring that she hadn't felt in her emancipation. Leo arrived with his usual carefree steps, a bright smile lighting up his young face. Without asking, he sat down beside her, pulling his small backpack onto his lap. "Today, I'll tell you about the garden," Leo said cheerfully. Clara raised an eyebrow. "This garden?" Leo shook his head. "No, your garden. The one behind your big house where Grandma used to plant roses."
Oh.
Clara's mouth parted slightly, an old memory flickering in her mind. It had been so long since she stepped into her own backyard, she had forgotten what it even looked like. Leo's eyes shone as he continued. Grandma loved planting. She said every flower was a little reminder that life always finds a way, no matter how harsh the winter. Clara's heart tightened. She remembered Rosa's calloused hands, her warm smile, the way she hummed while tending the roses. Used to sit by the window, watching her. Feeling at peace, Leo glanced up at Clara, his tone softer now. "After you sent her away, the flowers died," she used to tell me. Some things wither when love disappears from a place. But Clara swallowed, a lump in her throat. She hadn't visited her garden in over 3 years. After the accident, she had shut all doors literally and emotionally. Leo smiled faintly, you know. She always said the flowers missed you too. Clara chuckled bitterly, wiping a stray tear. Flowers don't miss people, Leo. Leo shrugged. Maybe, but people miss flowers. You stopped letting yourself feel happy. You stayed locked inside your sadness. Clara couldn't argue with that. Every evening felt dull, every morning a chore. She had buried herself in misery, building walls around her heart. Leo continued. Grandma believed forgiveness wasn't just for other people. It was for yourself too. Clara looked at the boy confused. What do you mean? Leo's young. Face looked unusually wise. You made a mistake. Yes, you accused her. You hurt her. But she forgave you a long time ago. You're the one who never forgave yourself. That's why you stayed broken, not just in your legs, but in your heart too. Clara felt the truth settle deep inside her chest, like a stone sinking in water. She had punished herself far longer than anyone else ever had. Leo smiled softly. Do you want to visit your garden again? Clara hesitated. She hadn't rolled out to the backyard since before the accident. She was afraid of memories, afraid of facing the life she had lost. But Leo's gentle eyes held no judgment, only quiet encouragement. Maybe, Clara whispered. Maybe I should. Grinned. Good. Baby steps. They spent the rest of the evening talking, Clara sharing memories she had locked away, Leo listening patiently. That night, Clara did something she hadn't done in years. She asked her housekeeper to open the back doors. The next morning, she wheeled herself to the garden. Weeds had overgrown, roses withered. But beneath the mess, life still lingered. She could smell it, feel it, and it made her heart ache and smile at the same time. She decided then tomorrow she'd return to the public garden again, and the next day, the next. Her body was still, frail but inside. Something small was beginning to heal. The next few days became Clara's quiet routine. Each afternoon, she made her way to the same spot beneath the tall sycamore where Leo waited. Every day, he brought a new story, a new piece of forgotten light from Clara's past. And slowly, something shifted within her. That day Leo didn't immediately dive into a story. He simply sat quietly, watching Clara settle in. She adjusted her shawl, noticing how her hands didn't tremble as much anymore, how her breaths felt steadier. Do you feel it? Leo asked suddenly, tilting his head. Clara frowned. Feel what? Leo smiled. The chains loosening. Clara blinked. Chains. Leo's young fingers pointed to her chest. The chains here. The ones that tied you down even more than the wheelchair. Clara's lips pressed together. I'm not chained, Leo. I'm injured. That's not the same thing. Leo leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. Your accident broke your body, but your anger, your guilt, they broke your spirit. Leo's jaw tightened. The words hitting places she tried to ignore. She had spent 3 years accepting her condition, blaming the accident for everything. But now, doubt was creeping in. Leo continued. You became afraid, Clara. You stopped seeing people, stopped feeling, stopped trying. You even stopped loving yourself. Clara's throat felt tight. It's easy for you to say. You're young, healthy. You can walk, run. You don't understand what it's like to be stuck. Leo's brown eyes didn't waver. Maybe I don't understand everything, but I understand sadness. I understand being abandoned. And I understand forgiveness. Clara swallowed hard, staring at the boy. Leo spoke quietly, you know. Sometimes it's not the broken bones that keep people down. It's the broken heart, the anger, the regrets. They're heavier than any wheelchair. Clara's breath caught in her throat. Her fingers curled into her lap. Leo whispered, Do you want to stay stuck forever, or do you want to live again? The question lingered in the air, heavier than anything Leo had said before. Clara's voice was a shaky whisper. Don't know how. Leo smiled softly. Then start here. Every day. One story at a time. One kind thought at a time. Loosen the chains yourself. Clara sat silently, feeling the breeze brush her cheeks, watching the leaves dance in the wind. She felt the weight pressing on her chest. But for the first time, she also felt it, shifting, loosening. Just a little. Leo smiled wider, and who knows? Maybe the legs will follow where the heart leads. Clara exhaled deeply, realizing just how long it had been since she allowed herself to hope. Maybe Leo was right. Maybe the chains weren't only on her legs. They were inside her. And maybe, just maybe, she was finally ready to break free. Clara returned home from the garden that day, with a mind too busy to rest. She wheeled herself straight into the empty kitchen and stared at the dusty shelves, the long-forgotten baking trays. Everything looked untouched, frozen in time, just like her life had been. Her heart whispered just one step. The next morning, instead of letting her helper serve breakfast in the dining room, Clara insisted on being taken to the kitchen. She wanted to truly see it. The housekeeper hesitated, surprised by Clara's sudden request, but said nothing. Clara wheeled herself inside and inhaled deeply. The place smelled like nothing, lifeless. Her fingers hovered over a recipe book, gathering dust. She picked it up. It was heavier than she remembered. Or maybe her arms had just become too weak after years of inactivity. Her heart beat faster as she turned the pages, till she found it, Rosa's chocolate chip cookies. The same recipe Leo had mentioned by noon. Clara sat in the kitchen with flour spread on the counter, her sleeves rolled up, the mixer beside her. Her helper stood nearby, ready to assist. Clara gave instructions, her voice finding its old firmness, her hands slowly remembering the rhythm. When the smell of baking filled the house, Clara felt something stir inside her. She wasn't helpless. She wasn't useless. She could still do something, however small. By evening, she returned to the park, carrying a small box of warm cookies. Leo was already waiting, playing with a stick, drawing lines in the dirt. His eyes lit up when he saw her. "You baked?" Clara nodded, her lips curving into a rare smile. "I baked." Leo took a cookie and bit into it, his face lighting up with joy. "Just like Grandma's," he said with his mouth full. Clara chuckled softly, and the sound surprised her. It was a real laugh, not one forced by bitterness or sarcasm. "Tomorrow," Leo said between bites, "we'll talk about the music." Clara's brows lifted. "Music?" Leo grinned. "Yes, your piano. The one collecting dust in your house." Clara's heart clenched, memories flashing. She hadn't touched the grand piano in years. She used to play every evening before the accident. Before her world darkened, Leo stood and stretched. "One thing at a time, Clara. First you remember how to feel. Then you remember how to live." Clara stared at him, her smile softening, realizing how different her days had started to feel. It wasn't just the baking. It wasn't just the cookies. It was everything the chains Leo talked about. They were loosening. Following morning, Clara woke up earlier than usual. She felt lighter. Her housekeeper was surprised to see her out of bed before breakfast, already dressed and asking for her physical therapist to come by later in the day. Clara rolled to the mirror. Her skin looked healthier. Her cheeks had color again, her eyes less empty. She hadn't done anything special, she just started remembering the little joys. The things she had left behind when anger and sadness took over. At her therapist's session, Clara felt an unusual strength in her upper body. She pushed herself harder, lifting her torso more confidently during the assisted stretches. "Interesting," the therapist remarked, adjusting her position. "Your muscles seem more responsive today." Clara shrugged with a small smile. "Maybe I'm just done being angry." The therapist nodded thoughtfully. "That helps more than you know." Later, she made her way to the garden again, the box of leftover cookies in her lap. Leo greeted her with his usual grin, dropping his stick and running over. "Your color's coming back," Leo said cheerfully. "Grandma used to say, when you forgive, your heart stops hiding." Clara handed him a cookie. "Your grandma was wiser than all my doctors." Leo laughed. "I told you, healing doesn't always come in a white coat." Clara leaned back, letting the wind kiss her face. She had a long way to go, but for the first time she could feel the smallest hint of life returning to her body, a faint tingle when she stretched her legs, a little more ease when she sat up straight.
Tomorrow?
She would open the doors to the music room. Tomorrow, she would remember how to listen, how to feel, how to live again. But today she felt peace. That, Clara thought, was a good enough start. The next morning, Clara wheeled herself down the silent corridor of her mansion, her fingers brushing against the familiar wallpaper, tracing patterns she hadn't noticed in years. Every corner of her house whispered old memoriecitos of who she used to be. At the end of the hall stood tall double doors, their golden handles, cold to the touch. Behind them was the music room sealed off since her accident, untouched, abandoned. She hesitated. Her breath grew shallow. Then she gripped the handle, turned it, and pushed the door open. Sunlight filtered through dusty curtains, falling onto the grand piano that sat quietly at the center of the room. Clara wheeled forward, her heart pounding, her throat dry. The piano was still polished. Her housekeeper had taken care of it, but it hadn't sung in years. Her hands, once graceful on the keys, now shook as she reached out. Slowly, she pressed one key. Plinned. The note rang out, soft and hesitant, but so painfully beautiful that Clara's chest tightened. She pressed another key, then another. The sounds were awkward, clumsy, but alive. Memories of peaceful evenings. The sound of music drifting through the house, Rosa humming while cooking. It all came rushing back. Tears burned her eyes. "I'm sorry, Rosa," she whispered. "I forgot how to be me." That afternoon, Clara returned to the park with a different glow about her. Leo noticed it the moment she arrived. "You opened." "It didn't you?" Leo asked, eyes twinkling. Clara smiled and nodded. "I played a little. It wasn't pretty, but it felt free." Leo clapped softly. "Grandma would have been so happy. She always said your music healed the house." Clara's lips trembled with emotion. "Leo, tell me more about your grandma. Tell me about now." Leo's smile faltered just a little. His fingers twisted together as he sat beside her. His voice softened, more serious. "She's doing well," Leo admitted. "Her heart, it's been weak. She's been in and out of the hospital." Clara's breath caught. Guilt clawed at her chest. "Why didn't anyone tell me? Why didn't someone come to me?" Leo's gaze was steady. "Grandma said you didn't owe her anything. She didn't want to burden you." But his voice lowered. "I don't think she has much time left. Less, unless she gets the surgery." Clara's eyes widened. "Surgery? What kind?" Leo swallowed. "A heart procedure. The doctor said it could help her live, but it's expensive. Grandma tried to save up, but we don't have enough." Clara felt her stomach twist painfully. Her wealth sat useless in banks and companies. Rosa, had once loved her like family, was suffering in silence. "How much is it?" she asked, voice tight. Leo shook his head quickly. "Grandma wouldn't want Leo," Clara interrupted firmly. "How much?" Leo hesitated, then whispered the amount. Clara blinked. For her it was nothing. A fraction of what she spent on useless luxury. Her voice grew soft, but determined. "I'll pay for it." Leo's eyes widened. "You?" Clara nodded. "Yes, not because I pity her, but because I owe her. Because I want her to live. Because I need to make things right." Leo's lower lip quivered slightly. His little fingers wiped his eye quickly. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice cracking. Clara placed a hand on his small head, her chest aching with emotion. "It's the least I can do, Leo." For the first time in 3 years, Clara felt something in her chest shift, an old chain snapping, maybe lock breaking. Maybe this was the real start of her healing. That evening, Clara called her personal assistant for the first time in months. Her voice was steady, her commands clear. "I need you to arrange a payment," she said, her tone firm. "To this hospital under an anonymous name. Full coverage for Rosa Mancini's heart surgery." Her assistant sounded shocked but followed orders without question. Clara leaned back, staring out of her window as the sun dipped below the horizon. Her legs didn't move. But her heart had started walking again, and tomorrow she would return to the park to Leo. Maybe to herself, the morning air felt softer as Clara wheeled herself through the open doors of her home. Heading to the garden with a sense of quiet determination, the house no longer felt like a cold tomb, but something warmer, lighter, alive. She had barely reached the sycamore tree when Leo came sprinting toward her, his face beaming with joy. "She's in the hospital," he announced breathlessly. "They scheduled the surgery for tomorrow," the doctor said. "The funds arrived." "They don't know who sent it, but—" Grandma cried. "Clara." She cried happy tears. Clara's throat tightened. A lump formed that she couldn't quite swallow. She looked up at the leaves swaying above them and blinked back the wetness gathering in her eyes. Leo sat down beside her, excitement written all over his little face. Grandma said it felt like a prayer was answered. She said someone, somewhere, still cared. Clara closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. "She does. Rosa. Really does." Leo turned to her with his wide brown eyes. "Why? Didn't you want her to know it was you?" Clara let out a soft breath. "Because this isn't about me being the hero. It's about fixing what I broke, without expecting anything in return. Sometimes, Leo, the best apologies are silent." Leo smiled, a knowing little smile that made Clara's chest ache. "I think Grandma would know in her heart anyway," he whispered. Clara's lips curved gently. "Maybe she will." The next day, Clara stayed home, restless but hopeful. Her assistant updated her from the hospital. Rosa was prepped for surgery, doctors optimistic but cautious. Clara spent the morning in her music room, letting the piano sing after years of silence. The tunes were clumsy, her fingers slower than before, but the sound wrapped around her heart like a soft embrace. For the first time in 3 years, she didn't feel completely broken. She felt human again. In the afternoon, her therapist arrived. For the usual session, Clara surprised her with a request. "Today, I want to try standing," Clara said softly. Her therapist's eyes widened. "Standing? Clara? We haven't attempted weight-bearing exercises in months." Clara raised her hand gently. "I just want to try, just for a moment." With quiet hesitation, the therapist agreed. They moved to the therapy bars set up in the corner of the room. Clara's arms trembled, sweat forming quickly on her brow as she gripped the bars, struggling to lift herself. Her legs felt like stones, but her heart roared with determination. Minutes passed. Her arms burned. Her breath grew ragged. And then a faint, subtle shift. A twitch in her right thigh. A flicker of muscle memory, Clara gasped. "Did you see that?" The therapist's eyes were wide. "Yes, you." Your leg responded. Clara's arms trembled violently, but her heart soared. She couldn't hold herself up for long, but there was something there. Signal. A flicker of life. For 3 years, her body had stayed silent. Today it whispered back. That evening, Clara wheeled herself to the garden once again, finding Leo waiting, his grin stretching from ear to ear. "They said the surgery went well." He burst out. "Grandma is in recovery. The doctor said it was smooth. She should be okay." Clara let out a shaky laugh, pure joy bubbling in her chest. "That's incredible news, Leo." Leo leaned against her wheelchair. "See, you thought you were broken. You saved someone's life, Clara." Clara's lips wobbled, tears blurring her vision. "I think Rosa saved mine too." Leo nodded firmly. "Forgiveness heals everything." Clara smiled through her tears. "Maybe. I'm finally starting to believe that." And for the first time in a very long time, Clara felt free. 4 days later, Clara sat in her car for the first time in over 3 years to house she wasn't the one driving. Her driver glanced at her through the rearview mirror, unsure, almost nervous. Clara wasn't one to visit people. For years she avoided social visits, family dinners, even holiday parties. But today, she asked to be taken somewhere special too. The hospital Leo had sent her a message earlier in the morning. "Grandma woke up. She's sitting up now. She's asking to see you." Clara's hands trembled as they rested on her lap. Our chest fluttered with fear. And hope? Would Rosa forgive her? Would she hate her? When they arrived, Clara was wheeled into the private room where Rosa was recovering. The door opened quietly, and for a moment, Clara just stared. Rosa looked older, frailer.
At her.
Ice toast familiar, warm, gentle, eyes shelled the same softness that Clara had always remembered. Leo stood beside her bed, holding his grandmother's hand, grinning from ear to ear. Rosa's head turned toward the door. Her smile faltered as her gaze landed on Clara. Her frail fingers tightened around Leo's hand. Clara inhaled deeply, her throat tightening. She rolled forward, stopping at the side of the bed, her fingers trembling on the wheels. "Rosa," she whispered, barely able to say the name. I don't even know where to begin. Rosa's lips curved into a gentle, tired smile. Her voice was raspy, but filled with kindness. "I forgave you. The day you let me go," Rosa said softly. "I knew. You were broken too." Clara's tears spilled over, her body shaking with sobs. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the years of guilt, anger, and sorrow unravel inside her. "I was wrong," Clara cried. "I wronged you. I hurt you. I destroyed your peace. And I didn't have the courage to fix it, until now." Reached out, her fragile hand resting on Clara's cheek, thumb brushing away the tears. "And yet, here you are," she whispered. "You came back." Clara covered Rosa's hand with both of hers, weeping freely. "I should have come sooner. I should have listened. I should have believed in you," Clara said, her voice breaking. Rosa's tired eyes glistened with emotion. "It's never too late to do the right thing." Leo stood close, watching the two women silently, a smile tugging at his lips. Clara laughed through her tears, wiping her cheeks. "You were always wiser than me." Rosa chuckled weakly. "Maybe had the bigger heart, you just forgot how to use it." Clara smiled tearfully. "I want to make things right, not just with words, but with actions." Rosa nodded slowly. "That's all I could ever wish for." Later, as Clara left the hospital room, Leo walked alongside her, holding her hand. "See?" Leo said, glancing up. "Oh, that wasn't so hard, was it?" Clara wiped her tears, her smile growing steadier. "It was terrifying, but it was the best thing I've done in years." Leo grinned. "Your heart's starting to walk. Your legs won't be far behind." Clara glanced down at her legs, spark of hope lighting within her. Maybe I'm ready to believe in miracles again." Leo squeezed her hand. "One step at a time," Clara nodded, feeling lighter than she had in years. For the first time since her accident. She didn't feel broken. She felt whole, and tomorrow she would take the next step. The next morning, Clara was up early. The sun was barely above the horizon, but her heart beat with a quiet energy. Her housekeeper blinked in surprise, seeing her dressed and ready by sunrise. Waiting by the therapy room doors. "I'll need help setting up," Clara said, her tone calm but determined. The housekeeper hurried to call the physiotherapist, who arrived within an hour. Together, they assisted Clara to the sturdy parallel bars she hadn't touched in nearly 2 years. Clara's palms pressed against the cold metal, her arms slightly trembling. Her therapist stood close, guiding her posture, correcting her balance. "Are you sure you want to try again so soon?" the therapist asked carefully. Clara's answer was firm. "Yes, I need to do this. It's not just for me anymore. For Rosa, for Leo, for herself." The first few minutes were hard. Her muscles protested, her arms strained, her body felt too heavy for her fragile frame. Sweat dripped down her forehead as she tried to lift herself, even just an inch. But she remembered Leo's words, "Your heart is already walking. Your legs will follow." And she remembered Rosa's forgiveness. Her smile in that hospital bed, the kindness that she didn't deserve but had been given anyway. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, focusing all her willpower into her body. Then it happened. Her left thigh twitched, then her right. Legs so long forgotten responded faintly beneath her. "Try again." Clara, the therapist encouraged, voice softer, more hopeful. Clara gritted her teeth, pushed again, and slowly, shakily, her body lifted just enough for her knees to unlock slightly. Her feet pressed into the floor. It wasn't perfect. She didn't stand tall, but it was something. It was a start. Her therapist's voice broke with emotion. You stood? For 5 seconds? Tears gathered in Clara's eyes as her chest filled with something unfamiliar. Pride, joy, life. I stood. That evening, Clara returned to the park, rolling up to the sycamore tree carrying a basket of fresh cookies and a folded note in her lap. Leo greeted her with excitement. As always, I felt something today, Clara said before Leo could speak. I stood by myself. Leo's face glowed with joy, clapping his little hands. I told you your legs would follow. Clara's laughter was genuine. You were right. Forgiveness is powerful, more powerful than I imagined. Leo's eyes sparkled. Grandma's going home in a few days. Maybe you'll be walking by then. Clara's chest warmed. Maybe, she whispered, but even if I'm not, I've already come so far. Leo bit into a cookie, sighing happily. You saved her, Clara. You saved yourself, too. Clara handed Leo the folded note. Can you give this to Rosa when she's feeling better? Leo peeked at the envelope. What is it? Clara smiled, eyes twinkling. A promise. Leo nodded, clutching the letter to his chest. She'll be really happy. Clara leaned back in her chair, staring up at the blue sky peeking through the leaves. Tomorrow, she would try standing again. Next week, maybe she would take a step. Someday, maybe she would walk freely again. But even if her legs never carried her the same way, her heart was already soaring, and that was more than enough. She was no longer trapped. She was no longer broken. She was healing. 1 week later, Clara stood in her living room clutching the therapy bars. Her arms shook. Her legs were weak, but her posture was straighter than before. Her personal trainer counted softly as she managed to stand for 20 seconds. Sure. New record, her housekeeper and personal assistant stood nearby, eyes wide, smiles wide. They were witnessing something they'd thought impossible again. Clara whispered breathlessly. Her therapist nodded, helping her sit for a moment before she pushed herself up again by the 4th attempt. Her muscles were trembling, but her heart was proud. The impossible was becoming possible, one determined day at a time. That afternoon, Clara visited Rosa Aganthus's time in Rosa's cozy little home. The surgery had been successful. Her face, though still pale, was peaceful, her eyes sparkling. With life, Leo bounced excitedly at the door when Clara arrived, helping her inside like a proud little host. Rosa sat up when she saw Clara and held out her hand. Clara reached out, squeezing it firmly. You look alive, Rosa whispered. With a playful smile, Clara chuckled softly. That's because you made me alive again. Rosa's eyes filled with tears. No, Clara, you saved yourself. You chose to break free. Clara swallowed the lump in her throat. She opened her bag and handed Rosa a carefully typed document. What's this? Rosa asked, frowning in confusion. Clara smiled gently. Contract. For you? Rosa's brows furrowed. I don't want charity. Clara shook her head. It's not charity. I'm reopening my garden. I need a head gardener to lead it. Someone who knows beauty, who knows patience, who knows how to nurture life. Rosa's lips trembled. You want me back? Clara nodded firmly. Not just in my house, but in my life. This time, not as a servant, but as a friend, as family. Rosa pressed a hand to her chest, overwhelmed. Clara smiled, blinking away her own tears. Leo giggled. Told you she's changed, Grandma. Clara laughed, the sound light and free. There's one more thing, she said, handing Rosa a second folder. I'm opening a rehabilitation center for people like me, people who need to heal both their bodies and their hearts. Rosa stared at her in awe. It will be named after you, Clara continued. The Rosa Center for Healing. Rosa covered her mouth, tears spilling over. I don't have words. You gave me my life back, Clara whispered. It's only right I help others find theirs too. Leo threw his arms around Clara, hugging her tightly. You did it, Clara. You really did it." Clara hugged him back, her heart swelling. The chains had broken. The walls had crumbled. She was no longer a prisoner of her pain. She was alive, hopeful, and free. The weeks turned into months, and Clara's life continued shifting in ways she never imagined. Every morning began with therapy. Clara stood longer, walked small steps along the parallel bars, and even managed a few independent steps on soft grass. Her muscles burned, her breath came in gasps, but every step tasted like victory. Her heart was no longer weighed down by guilt. It was lifted by purpose. The house that once echoed with silence was alive again. The kitchen smelled of freshly baked bread and cookies. The music room rang with soft melodies each evening as Clara's fingers, though rusty, found their rhythm again. And the garden. It bloomed once more, with Rosa's careful guidance.
Oh.
The overgrown mess was transformed into rows of vibrant flowers and healing plants. Clara often wheeled herself down the stone path, breathing in the scent of jasmine and roses, feeling her soul stretch wide under the open sky. The Rosa Center for Healing opened its doors in late spring. Clara's private estate converted its back wing into a peaceful rehabilitation space, offering therapy not just for physical wounds, but for emotional ones too. People came broken, many in wheelchairs. Many drowning in quiet sadness. Clara greeted them herself, sharing her journey. Offering hope, Leo visited every day after school, helping Rosa in the gardens, sitting by Clara as she practiced standing, encouraging her to try one more step, one more note on the piano, one more laugh. On sunny afternoons, they sat beneath the sycamore tree, enjoying cookies and quiet chats. "You saved yourself, Clara," Leo would remind her, and Clara, with a warm smile, always replied, "No, Leo, you reminded me how to live." One warm evening, Clara stood without help for the first time. Her legs wobbled, but she stayed upright. She lifted her head, arms wide, eyes closed, breathing in the freedom she thought she'd lost forever. Rosa wiped away tears. Watching from the garden path, Leo clapped wildly, running to her side. Clara opened her eyes and laughed, a sound so pure it made the wind hush in reverence. "This," she whispered, "is what forgiveness feels like. Not just walking back, truly living." Summer came, painting the skies golden, in Clara's home, transformed into a beacon of renewal. The once gloomy mansion echoed with life visitors, patience, music, and laughter now filled the halls. Clara's days were full. Her mornings started in the therapy wing of the Rosa Center. She led group sessions, sharing her story not as a motivational speaker, but as someone who had been through the trenches of despair and clawed her way back. She often looked around, at the hopeful eyes staring back at Hiryong veterans, accident survivors, people battling depression, saw pieces of her old self in them. But more importantly, she saw what was possible. Her body, though far from perfect, had grown stronger. She could walk short distances with the help of a cane now. Her balance was shaky, her pace slow, but each step felt like a rebellion against the dark years that had imprisoned her. Afternoons were for the gardens. Rosa, now healthier than ever, led teams of gardeners and volunteers. She smiled more, her cheeks fuller, her spirit thriving. Clara would join her, helping plant flowers, getting her hands dirty, rediscovering the joy in nature's quiet healing. Leo remained a constant presence. His young energy breathed life into every corner of Clara's world. He helped set up a children's therapy garden within the center, calling it Leo's Patch, where children with disabilities could plant their own flowers. In the evenings, Clara returned to her piano. Music flowed once again, sometimes clumsy, sometimes graceful, but always from the heart. The mansion lit up with sound, with peace, with connection. From the ashes of her pain, Clara had bloomed, and it all began with forgiveness path to Rosa. And to herself, autumn arrived quietly, carrying with it a gentle chill, but Clara felt nothing but warmth inside her chest. The final leaves drifted lazily to the ground, carpeting the garden in amber and gold. Life felt different now, purposeful, lighter, whole. The Rosa Center continued to grow, offering comfort to those who thought life had left them behind. The mansion no longer stood as a monument to loneliness, but as a home filled with healing. One morning, Clara stood beside her bed, holding the polished wooden cane Rosa had gifted her. Leo was by her side, his grin infectious. "Today's the day," Leo said excitedly. Clara nodded, heart fluttering. It had been exactly 1 year since the day Leo first walked up to her in the park with those unforgettable words. "I can help you walk again." She remembered laughing at him. She remembered the disbelief, the hopelessness. She had been certain life was over for her now. She stood Talshaki. Slow but tall, Leo walked beside her as she stepped outside, the sun kissing her skin. Rosa waited in the garden, holding a bouquet of freshly cut lilies. Clara truly walked across the garden path without her wheelchair, her cane tapping gently with each step. Her legs trembled, but they held. Her heart, however, was stronger than it had ever been when she reached Rosa. They embraced tightly, both women crying softly. "I thought I'd lost everything," Clara whispered, "but forgiveness brought me home." Rosa smiled through her tears. "Forgiveness saved us both." Leo squeezed between them, hugging them both. "And look what you built, thought, for everyone who thought they were broken." Clara stood taller, her voice calm but steady. "No one is broken forever. Sometimes you just need one person to believe in you." Clara looked around her at the bustling center, the blooming flowers, the laughter echoing through the garden sand, realized this was her new life. One built on forgiveness, love, and second chances. The past no longer imprisoned her. Her final steps in that garden were not just a walk. They were freedom. And as she stood there, arms wrapped around Rosa and Leo, Clara smiled. Her life had only just begun.